guys, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I am Coach Julia, and today is part 4 of the project of making Paolo's skating costume. Just a refresher, we are working on making this fabulous costume go from paper to reality. So in part 1, I was working on the design. Part 2, I made the black velvet pants. Yesterday, you saw me making the tunic that's gonna go over the pants, that gets attached to those pants, and I'll post links to all 3 of those down below so you can get caught up if you missed them. Today is the most fun part in my mind. We're gonna be adding the crystals, we're gonna be doing that stoning work. It is very labor intensive. I have a gazillion stones to apply, and I have, let's see, 3 days to get it all done in. So he needs to be able to practice in it before he goes to the Philippines, and he goes to the Philippines in just a couple of days. So we are running a little bit tight on schedule, but it's all going to get done and it's going to look amazing. So today we're going to be diving into those crystals. Let me show you what we're working with.
We are actually using 21 gross of stones in quite a few different colors. I have quite a collection laid out here ready to go onto Paolo's costume. So we're going to be starting out with these beautiful white Maxima crystals, and I'm going to start by just edging the outside of this white stripe down the tunic. So this is really simple. It doesn't take me a lot of creativity to think about it. I can get this done and off my plate. So we are just alternating the smaller size 20 crystal and the more mid-size 30 crystal. So we've got a little bit larger and a little bit smaller, alternating down the edges. Here you can see that slight difference in size. It just creates a little bit more of a dynamic effect, so it's not such a solid line of 20s down the front. Next, we're going to start on this big burgundy half circle. So I actually have stones that are called burgundy stones. So these are a burgundy Maxima stone, and they are a really beautiful match to the burgundy mesh that I'm using on this costume. That looks really, really nice. Just gives a little bit of a pop without adding a different color to this area. There's so many complex colors on this tunic that I don't want to complicate it by adding more added colors. So I'm trying to make the stones match the piece of fabric that they're on, so that they're just making that fabric pop rather than adding a different dimension. Now we're going to use a purple stone in a mix between 20s and 30s in a scatter pattern all over the front. Now this is down the left side of the tunic. These are the stones I'm most excited about. They're called lava, and they alternate between a red, an orange, and a purple as it moves around. I just love this. It looks like fire to me, and I'm very, very excited to be able to use these on Paolo's costume. So we're just going to outline the edge of this gorgeous burnt orange stretch velvet. And I'm doing a pattern with 2 of the 20s and then 1 30, 2 20s and 1 30. So it's a little bit of an uneven staggering of those different sizes. I really like doing things like this so we don't have a nice solid line, but more of a textured line. And here is how that looks. You can really see the color change as I move the camera around. And now we're going to go back to that left side of the front of the tunic and start filling in the shoulder. So what I want is the shoulder to be really intense with the crush of stones and have them lighten up as it goes down the costume. So the shoulder is just really, really, really heavy, and then we get a little bit of a lighter amount of stones down towards the waist. And on the right side, we're going to do something pretty much the same, but there's more going on the right side, so you're not going to see it the same way. We still want a lot of stones up at the top near the shoulder, and then there are going to be fewer stones as we go down towards the waist. Now I'm going to use these sort of gold colored stones, and that is going to go along the butternut squash colored stretch velvet. So we're going to outline that. I usually use a syringe when I'm applying glue, and I could not get any this short of notice. So I'm using a E6000 tube that has a little syringe attached to it. Unfortunately, the tendency with this is for the tube to start cracking after use, and so I have it wrapped in tissue to keep the glue from getting all over my hands. So here on the shoulder, we're again just alternating 220s and 130 to give it a little bit of texture along this solid line. Loving how this is looking so far. Very complex and adds to the colors. This waterfall effect with the purple stones on this shoulder is just lovely. Turned out so nicely. Love this little accent on the butternut squash stripe. The only place where I've used an accent stone is here because I wanted to differentiate the purple from the black on either side. So I used a color called Crystal Shade in a size 20. It's a little bit gold, and I just really like how this accents that purple hook. And then over here, of course, we have those purple stones, and we use the burgundy to accent this shoulder area as well. So we have those little burgundy stones around the shoulder. We still need to fill in the white. Here I used a color that coordinated with the velvet, so the color changes as it moves around, so it matches the velvet that it's being applied onto. Really, really happy. It looks like art, and that is exactly what I wanted for Paolo's costume. Now we're gonna get started on the back, and we're just gonna do the same thing. We're copying all of those same patterns that we did on the front over onto the back. So we have alternating 20s and 30s with the beautiful crystal color all the way down the outside edge of this white accent stripe. Being very, very careful around the zipper seam so that we don't accidentally glue that zipper shut. Next, we're gonna go into this burgundy shoulder, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're taking those size 20 burgundy stones and just outlining the edge between the burgundy and the purple elastic stripe here. And we're going to continue those stones along the butternut squash velvet area. So we're doing the same pattern, 220s and 130, creating a little bit of a textured line down this area. I also am going to fill in where I had to remove stones to be able to sew. So in order to sew this pre-crystalled mesh, I had to remove a bunch of stones. So I saved as many as I could, and I'm gluing them back in. You can see here it's a little bit patchy along the edges, and I just really don't like the way that looks. So I took the time to fill all of those areas in. Looks so much better. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing we did on the front. So now we're going to create that cascade where it's really heavy and rich with stones at the top and gets lighter as it goes down. So we have 20s and 30s in just a wild mishmash here on the shoulder, and so far it's looking really, really good. And we're going to repeat that on the other shoulder, going around these piano keys. I'm not going to put any stones on the white, just really accent them by putting a lot of stones around them so that the solid white kind of stands out on its own. And now we are going to address this hook in the back. It's time to jazz this up. We're going back in with those gorgeous, fiery, lava-colored stones in the 20s and the 30s. So now on this hook, we're just alternating a large and a small, a 20 and a 30. So we have one large, one small alternating, and then I'm going to add an extra 20 next to each of the 30s for a little bit added texture. And then we're going to go in to the gold shade. So we're going to go 2 smalls and 1 large, so 2 20s and 1 30, alternating just like we did on the other areas when we used this color of stone. And then between the 2 areas of velvet, we're going to use that lava shade again, so that we have the lava on both sides of that cool fan, and that's going to really highlight that curve right there. And of course, we're using alternating 20s and 30s with an extra 20 next to each 30 for some really good texture. And this is just looking amazing. I'm so happy with how the crystals are accenting the drama that's already here on the back. And now we're going to add some of these crystal shade stones to the outside edge of these black pieces. So these are black velvet pieces left over from the pants. And we're just going to do a little line of crystal shade 20s along the outside edge, just so that this area pops when he's skating. The black velvet can disappear on the ice, so these little stones are going to make it so you actually see this pattern while he's skating. Now we're going to go back to the front, just fill in some of the other areas I didn't do before. We're going to again use the same color of stones as is on the fabric, so that we're accenting the fabric, we're not creating new patterns. The only place this is different is here on these little black designs. Again, we're using that crystal shade to make these pop. And last but not least, we are going to go ahead and add a whole bunch more stones on the shoulder, on this big white area, doing a heavy crush of stones on the shoulder and more dispersed stones, looser stones down on the bottom. We actually have 2 different sizes and 2 different kinds of stones. So we're using crystal colored stones in 20s and 30s, and we're using crystal AB. And if you look carefully, you can see that crystal AB has a little bit of color to it as it moves about.
All right, we're just about done here. The crystals look amazing. I'm so excited about how this is turning out. I definitely had a couple of moments when I was doing it and I was like, am I going in the right direction? And I had to kind of pause and look at it and kind of recalibrate and make sure I was happy with the direction we're going with the crystals. But at this point, I love it. I think it looks amazing and I cannot wait to get Paolo's reaction. So tomorrow, I'll be taking this costume to the rink so Paolo can practice in it and see what he thinks of the final costume. If you want to see that final reveal, make sure you come back to see tomorrow's video where I share with you the final result of all of this work, and I'll be sharing it with Paolo. So we're going to be able to get to see it out on the ice in action. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of those videos coming out. If you enjoyed this, please do give us that thumbs up. And as always, I look forward to reading all your comments in that section down below. Happy skating, and I'll see you next time.